Greetings from Moscow. Herculez Gomez, Sebastian Salazar for ESPNFC.com. Herc, I think a lot of people saw our segment on ESPN FC last night, me yelling back and forth at the guys in studio. Clearly some of my frustrations about the Mexican national team starting to boil over. I've had 24 hours to cool off a little bit. But you know, in the Mexican press right now, there's a big discussion how to properly catalog this tournament. Failure, disaster, success, somewhere in between. Where do you put it?
Okay. The Mexican national team had it very clear, very simple. El quinto partido or bust. They didn't get there, so bust. But let's be very clear about this. They defeated the defending World Cup champions in Germany in the first game in very convincing fashion. The second game, they dominated South Korea. 6 points out of 2 games, and in disaster struck versus Sweden. And then you have to go in playing the fifth, potentially for the 5th game against Brazil. This Brazil, Coutinho, Neymar, Willian, Paulinho, it was always going to be difficult. There is no shame in losing. There is dignity in losing, especially the way they did. Great efforts, but I think it's somewhere in between. If you talk to people back in Mexico, it is a complete and utter failure. I don't see it as that, but I think if the end goal is the 5th and final game, then yes, bust.
Some news today, Oribe Peralta announcing his retirement from the national team. He's one of a few players, and I don't think necessarily he fits into the golden generation quite. He's a little bit older than that. But when you start to look at the guys who are the base of this team, it is very unlikely that they will be here with the Mexican national team for Qatar and the World Cup in 4 years' time. You know the Mexican youth structure extremely well, having played there for most of your professional career. Are there players who can come into this group and at least keep Mexico at the level that we've seen, not just in this World Cup, but in the previous qualifying cycle?
Not enough at the moment. If you look at Liga MX, domestic league, and how they completely ignore the young domestic
devalue by bringing in foreign players.
Correct.
Yes.
There are no Mexican players coming up through the ranks. Because of that, you saw the second team, the B team, participate in Gold Cup, and it was a domestic league team. Players that aren't even starters don't participate a lot, and that was a complete and utter failure on their part. So you would have to say there aren't anybody stepping in, and they won't be anybody stepping in anytime soon, unless things change in Liga MX.
When you get to a World Cup and guys have good performances, people start talking about the jump to the next level. Chucky Lozano is an obvious one. Hector Herrera is another obvious one. Give us some other guys on this team who, with their performance, prove they are ready, either if they're in Europe to make a jump to a next level in Europe, or if they're playing in Mexico to make that jump overseas.
I think the obvious one, but he's already in Europe, is Carlos Salcedo. He was easily the best defender for me. I think he's ready for a bigger team. That said, this is also a player in the last 24 hours who has threatened to quit the national team, to retire from the national team. That's how much frustrations have set in with the players and the press. I think he's ready for bigger and better things.
What about Chucky Lozano? We've heard him linked to Barcelona. We've heard HH linked to a top-tier team in Real Madrid. Are those real for you? Do you think those are possibilities and good ones?
I've seen crazier things happen, but at this point, it seems like a lot of rumor mill stuff from agents starting that to increase their transfer market value. That said, he is a lot bigger than PSV.